we are up. This is pjnet.tv. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and you are about to hear a first-time guest. And our bumper's running. We are recording this. We are streaming to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Let's start a countdown to Studio 40 Alpha. Well, oops, sorry about that, folks. Gee, I didn't do it right. Our guest is already on the screen. That's not the way we're supposed to do it. Our guest, you just saw our guest. I will refer to her. Her name's April, as you know. We've just been so busy talking while doing the dry run today and all that stuff. It would have been a great program if we just would have recorded that and played it back to you. But anyway, this is pjnet.tv. Thank you, all of you who are situated in the pjnet.tv live chat room, watching it there. Now, if you're watching it somewhere else, well, you're doing it wrong. Go to pjnet.tv. You can watch the same thing there and enjoy watching the program and joining the fellowship of people who are there who want to friend you on Facebook and follow you on Twitter. And they want to subscribe to your blog, and they want to buy your book. What else can I say? It's the best family on the internet, promise. Okay, folks, we have, at the behest of J.D. Winninger, April will be joining us now, as you saw earlier. And the scenery behind me, she actually supplied this, and I told her that she April, you need to contact the Chamber of Commerce in your area and tell them to do something about the scenery in the countryside to make it more attractive to where people would want to come visit.
I will do that.
Who's this character back here?
Well, this is one of our mama cows, and she actually had twins. We can't see it, but there's one of her babies in the picture with her. But yeah, so we have plenty of those mama cows.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to show that, and I realized I shut you off at the process. So we have some more pictures to share with you. But April, take us back. Did you watch one too many episodes of Green Acres?
I think I probably did, but I did marry a farmer, but I must say I was not totally new to livestock. I grew up in a small town, in town, as they say, but I had horses. I always rode horses. I helped my elderly neighbor with his cows. So when I met my husband and we got married over we've been together probably 25 years. It was kind of a natural fit.
Okay. So you, however, did not intentionally pursue. I'm looking at the background and I see what appears to be like an eye chart or a monument to an eye chart.
Correct.
Tell us about your professional life.
Okay. So my professional life, I am a physician assistant who has practiced family medicine for the most part for, gosh, it's going on 30 years now. But about 8 years ago, I began teaching at Campbell University's PA program. So I'm full-time faculty here, and I love it. But I have as farmers' wives say, I have a public job. At a university, and then I also have my sheep, and I help my husband with his cattle, and I also write devotions, and that is kind of how I ended up on your show.
Okay. April, I've got there's so many ways we can go here, but you have you say that you're not a photographer, yet some of the work that you have sent our way belies that claim. This is like the picture you would put on the cover of a jigsaw puzzle. Who is this character?
I know, and yes, and we do have livestock guardian dogs because we have several hundred head of cattle I have right now 40 sheep that are mine. We have donkeys, we have pigs. We just had piglets born today. So we have a lot of livestock, and we also have a lot of coyotes because we're on the Cape Fear River in North Carolina, and our livestock, you know, is at risk. When we first bought this property, there were coyotes every. You couldn't throw a rock without hitting a coyote. But between our Anatolian Shepherds, our Great Pyrenees, and our crosses, it is a very rare sight now to see a coyote. So, but yeah, I love taking pictures of my dogs, my animals, just the farmscapes, those type things.
Well, here's another ugly picture. Who are the actors
Mhm.
in this one?
This is my Palomino mare named Rain, and this is Buck. He is a rescue that I actually rescued when he was. I had to bottle feed him, put it that way. So I raised him on a bottle, and then there's a kayaker, and as you can see, my horse, she was a little bit skeptical about what is that thing in the river there. So she was definitely zoning in on him.
In doing your farming, JD kind of sent us your way, and I think you're familiar with some of his stories. But uh,
Mhm.
when you do your farm work, the day to day
Mhm.
chores, does God reveal Himself to you, and not just
Oh, for sure.
can we see
Yes.
God, but do you hear
No.
God? I mean, we can all
Yes.
see God if
Well,
we'll just look up at the sky, really, but hearing God is
right.
another matter.
Yes, and I will say, first of all, I do not have anything to sell. I have a website, capefearfarmlife.com, and you can go there and feel free to peruse and just look at what I call my pasture parables, which are just they're parables of what happens on the farm, and the Lord gives me messages, and I try to do this every Sunday. And I have a Facebook page, the Cape Fear Farm Life, and then also Instagram, Cape Fear Farm Life. And I try to post those. And as I said, there's not any monetary anything for me, but I just feel that I have been led by the Lord to to share what He shares with me. And Mr. JD can tell you that I have certain characters. I have a blind ram, which he's not really a ram. He has been altered, as they say. So, for those that don't know, that term is called a wether. He is not a ram. He cannot father any lambs,
Help
but
me. Is
he is
is
a
this
wether.
the is this him?
This is BB. This is him when he was a baby, and he was born blind, and he is the first animal that really the Lord kind of used analogies in my mind and in my daily life. As you know, in the Bible, followers are often called sheep, and our shepherd is the Lord Jesus Christ. And so BB stands for blind baby, because we used to say, there's that blind baby. So BB, he relied on us a lot, just as we should rely on our shepherd, and just his exploits and adventures, different things that have happened, parables come into my mind, and I write them down. So anybody that is familiar with my devotions certainly knows who BB is. And he's a lot older now. He's not a little baby. His little nubbies there are now real true horns, but he's definitely special.
Um, why did you elect to keep this defective creature? It's not
You sound like my
profitable.
husband. Please stop. No, because I got super attached. But what is really interesting is his mother. So the reason that I think he was blind is because we were actually somebody gave us, like, for free, his mother and two other sheep because they were the lone survivors of a dog attack, a vicious dog attack that had killed the rest of the flock. And his poor mom to this day has no ears. She almost died, but she was pregnant with him when this attack happened, and she had to take tons of medicine and all this kind of stuff. So I
Mm.
don't know if the medication made him blind or just the trauma of being
Mhm.
inside his mother. But anyway, so obviously when he was born, he was like one of the first sheep I had ever seen, as a lamb. And my husband instantly said, we rode over and he was still wet. His mom was cleaning him off. And my husband says, he's blind. And I said, what are you talking about? How can you tell? And he said, he's blind. He said, look at how he's circling. And he was just walking in
Mm.
circles.
Mhm.
So anyway, his mom took care of him and raised him on several hundred acres, but he knew me and knew my voice because I always fed him separately. And I just got attached. And there he is, and
There,
he's still at my house.
there's a few sermons I could preach on what you just said. Okay.
Oh, well,
Um,
exactly. And there are plenty. There are plenty. There's one called The Blessings of Blindness. And, it just talks about how my sheep, they get their own ideas, and they'll follow me to a degree. And then when they feel like I don't need you anymore, they just do crazy things and go where they want to. But BB doesn't because he's blind. And so he follows me closely. And how awesome would it be if we could follow the Lord as closely as this little blind lamb follows me? So
mhm.
you see how it happens. You see what happens.
You included this one, and I wanted to show it because one, there's a character here. I don't know if we've already seen it, the dog, but I wanted to show this as an example of what in photography we call Fresnel, which is spelled Fresnel. When you have a lake, a body of water that is still like that, it reflects almost mirror-like as long
Hmm.
as you'll notice the reflection in the distance is very sharp, but as you move toward, if you draw your attention down to where your feet would be, the water's no longer reflecting, it is clear. That effect is called Fresnel. There's your lesson
Yeah,
in photography, folks.
I learned
Is this
something.
is
As
this
I told
Bo
you, I
the
like to take pictures, but
is
I'm not
this
a photographer.
have we met this dog?
This is Bo. This Gabe, the other dog that was at the river. This is Gabe's son, and his son was born at my farm, and then I sold him. But when he was 10 months old, he came back to me because the people that bought him had a 350-acre farm, and he just didn't think that was enough land. So he traveled all the time.
He's got quite the spirit. And
Yeah,
okay, now uh, is it sheep or goats? What do we got here?
these are sheep. And yes, they're all sheep. Now there's one goat. I used to have goats, but it got to be a little bit precarious because they have different nutritional needs, and goats need copper and sheep can't have copper, and the goats are mean to the sheep. So I sold my goats. But yeah, this is just a foggy morning when I went to feed, and um, just a typical picture that I see every day.
Suffering for Jesus, indeed. You had mentioned your website earlier, and you said, what is it? The
It's
past
Cape Fear Farm Life. Oh, Pasture Parables. That's what I
pasture,
called my
yeah,
Pasture
pasture,
Parables.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
how often do you update that?
I do. I try to do one weekly on
Okay.
Sundays.
Hmm.
And I will tell you that if you go, and I'm sure if there are authors that are watching, okay, I need to be more consistent with my blog, but it is very when you have a public job and you have a farm and you have 40 sheep and you have all this stuff and you try to post it on Facebook and you try to post it on Instagram and you try to blog it, sometimes it gets a little much, but I try my best. So let me tell you a little bit about the website, because not only is it just Pasture Parables, it's kind of my life. And it's just a really cool piece of property that we purchased. It used to be a rock quarry, and now it is our farm. But we took the old weigh station where they used to have scales, and the big dump trucks would pull up loaded with rock or loaded with sand, and they would run over the scales and they would weigh it and they would hand them a ticket. We turned that into our house. It's small, but it's called the Scale House. And so we live in the Scale House. And so I'm Southern and I love to cook. And so I cook a lot, and there's all kinds of pictures of food. There's, our Scale House. There's my dogs. There's crazy stories about me on my side by side getting stuck in the mud and trying to pull myself out. I mean, just farm life. So it's interesting for sure if you like that kind of thing.
Well, by the way, do you have any domestic pets in your home, or the?
I do. I have a dog named Ree, and she is part Feist and Chihuahua, and she's 12, and she is like our child. And then I have two rescue dogs. Buck, you saw in one, and Gracie is a blue heeler. So I have Buck, Gracie, and Ree are my normal pets, and then everybody else has a job.
Okay. And which one is this? Have we seen this one?
Okay, that's Holly. That is Bo's mama. So remember, now we've seen Bo's mom, Holly, and dad, Gabe. She's full-blooded Pyrenees. And then Gabe is part Anatolian Shepherd, part Pyrenees. And then Bo is as well. And I feel guilty because my Anatolian Shepherd, who is kind of like the patriarch, his name is Judah. So I've got Judah and Gabriel. But Judah, I don't know if I sent a picture of him, but he is the leader of the pack.
Okay. I'm noticing in many of the pictures that we're looking at, bodies of water. And you mentioned that this was, when you bought it, had been used as a rock quarry. So I imagine there are many holes in the ground that hold water that have turned into ponds. But I also noticed a kayaker.
That is the Cape Fear River.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking is that would be...
the Cape Fear, and how we came about the Cape Fear farm was, so my husband's home place is where we lived, and we leased multiple farms across several counties for cattle. And so we, each farm had a name. We had the County Line Farm because it was on County Line Road. We had, the home place because it was the home place. And then we bought this place and it was called the Cape Fear Farm because it's on the Cape Fear River. And so the Cape Fear River, for those that are not from my area, is a very famous river that goes all the way down to Southport and Wilmington and into the ocean. And so it's really cool. There's a lot of old locks and just a lot of history to that river.
Now, now I don't know how the laws are in your state, but in our state, if a named river runs through your property, you can own the property on both banks of that river, but the public cannot be denied riparian rights to use the waterways in our state are public.
Right.
So
it is here too. Yeah. So we don't own the water of the river. We own the water in the lakes that's on our property because nobody has access to that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So the public, you could, because I saw that kayaker and I thought that could be what we call a trespasser, or that could be, just a member of the public. And it isn't, it's, you've got your livestock and you've got your livelihood, yet at the same time, your farm has got this big open door and
Mhm.
hallway through it
Well, and
called
what's
Cape
funny
Fear
though,
River.
yeah, and what's funny though is the Cape Fear, it's really interesting that it's not inhabited. I don't know why. I mean, but when I go down to the river, you will see kayakers. They put in at the bridge in our town in Lillington, and it's like a 4 or 5 hour float slash
Hmm.
paddle slash some rapids
Hmm.
to get to the next bridge
Hmm.
where people can come out.
Okay.
So I mean, it's really common for us to hear people and see people, but it's kind of comical when they're coming down and they feel like they're in the wilderness because literally there are no homes on the river. And
Hmm.
I think the reason there are probably no homes on the river is because number one, to get to the river, it's a mile back
Hmm.
from like where the scale house is.
Right.
So it's a mile from the road. But number two, the flooding that happens during
Right.
hurricanes and
Hmm.
things. But it's interesting to watch them, and they're laughing and they're talking, and they feel like they're in the middle of the wilderness. And then all of a sudden, they hear this booming bark of one of these dogs, and it's almost like they just about flip over. And they look and say, "Oh my goodness, look, there's cows, look, there's dogs." Sure, it's kind of strange.
I'm going to breeze through a couple, or the remainder of our pictures
Sure.
as quickly as I can. Here we've got another beautiful sunrise in what's called a lens flare. That streak of light is
Hmm.
actually a reflection in the internal mechanism of the lens. But
Hmm.
that water's just a little too still. I know this was taken in the morning because
Hmm.
the mist is coming up. But that it
Hmm.
appears not to be running water. That appears to be one of those
Yes,
lakes.
that's a lake. That's one of the lakes, and the little lamb to the left, she just, to me, this picture is very spiritual. It just, I just kind of named it in my head, little girl hears from God. And it's almost like she is thinking, you know what I'm saying? She was a triplet. I still have her as an adult, but I just love that picture. It just says a lot to me.
Okay, so you see here an example of a artificial lens flare, uh,
Hmm.
a a anomaly of light passing through glass.
Hmm.
Here's one that God made.
Yes.
There's actually a double rainbow there if you look carefully enough.
Yes. I have so many rainbow pictures that it is the most incredible thing. And people always ask me, why do you have like such great pictures? Or and the answer is it's not that I'm super special and I'm not like, just the best photographer in the world. But if you think about it, because of the fact that this was mined property and they clear cut it and then they had to redo all this stuff, there's just a lot of expanse. And so you can see a lot of the clouds. You can see, it's pretty scenery, yes, but also it's open.
It is. And this is our last picture. What a beautiful sunset.
Yes. Yes.
Now, how do
That
I
was a
know that's
pretty
not a
sunset
sunrise?
because you're just super smart.
Well, I'm looking at
I
the
don't know.
water, and there is no mist coming off the water. In the morning,
Gotcha.
okay, the water is warmer than the air, okay, and mist will come off the
Gotcha.
water. That is the
Hmm.
opposite is true in the afternoon. The air is warmer than the water. Doesn't happen.
Right.
Anyway, beautiful, beautiful
Well, thank you
scenery.
for showing my pictures. Yeah. And so the website and kind of what I do, and as far as why do I think that I was probably invited to be on your show, Mr. JD knows that, I think we all have gifts. And I think part of the gifts that the Lord has given me to help spread the gospel is just through pictures, through words, through the pasture parables, how we talked about BB, and that's just one little thing. It could be something totally, totally random. Other things in my life that I think that help me to connect with people is I am a breast cancer survivor, and so that journey in itself um, taught me a lot as a human being, but taught me a lot as a Christian, and helped me mature in my Christian walk and connected me with other people. So, I think we all have our gifts and talents, and I think that we are commissioned to go out and spread the gospel. And we all do that in different ways. And this is just the way that I do it, or
Well,
try to do it.
I appreciate you sharing that because I wanted to hurry through those pictures because I wanted to ask you a
Mhm,
question. What's
mhm,
driving you? This isn't, uh, I, you might guess that agriculture, farming, and this kind of thing drives you, but I remember very well when Florida, after much debate,
mhm.
instituted the lottery. And the very
Yeah.
first winner of the lottery was a farmer. So, of
Mhm,
course, the media interviewed him, and, it was a big deal. And they asked the
mhm.
farmer, well, what are you going to do with all this money? He said, I'm going to keep farming until it's gone.
Right, right, exactly.
And the same might be said of many authors. I think that some of the things we do are not driven by ambition and profit. Okay.
No, and I tell you, so when I was diagnosed with my breast cancer back in 2013, it totally blindsided me because, first of all, I wasn't sick. I didn't feel bad. It was just, I had already had a normal mammogram that year. It was just, and just the Lord moved through that. And long story short, it was only God that got me diagnosed when I was, because it was such an aggressive cancer that it was growing so rapidly that had I not found it when I did, which was definitely divine intervention, I mean, I probably wouldn't be here to be talking about this. But so much happens when you have a diagnosis like that.
Hmm.
And one of the things that happens is you really think, okay, I really may not live through
Right.
this. And when I really thought that, and I really thought that this could be, a year, because most people, I'll just be honest with you, the cancer that I had a very poor prognosis in general. And so I thought, I'm going to die and I haven't done enough for the Lord, is really what I thought.
Amen.
And it was like an impetus to make me start doing stuff. And so it was a springboard, and we had not even bought the Cape Fear farm yet. But during that time, I did my first devotion, and it was also about nature, but it was about me planting mums, and those mums still grow. But I had bought some chrysanthemums for Halloween, for the fall, to
Hmm.
plant,
Right.
and in the meantime got diagnosed.
Hmm.
And it was just a devotion that came from that. And then I just realized I got to get on it. So that is what drives me, because every time I start to spend too much time at work, or spend too much time, farming, but not listening to God and being still. And there are times, every author knows this, there are times that God just doesn't speak. And I learned it's not that he's not speaking, it's that you're not listening.
Well, you're not
Like I said,
tuned
it's
in.
like
You're tuned into the wrong
yeah,
channels.
it's like radio waves. I tell people all the time, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I wish the Lord spoke to me like that." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Well, if you think about it, he is. It's like radio waves going through the air, and if you don't tune in to hear them, you just think he's not speaking, but he is." So that's what springboarded me. And I'm terrible because people say, "Oh, if you would do some of your pictures on Canvas, I would buy them." Or if you would do a calendar, I would buy it. Or if you would put your parables in a book, I would buy it. But if I do little things like that, I just give it to people because I'm just like, "Here, have it." And they're like, "No, but I want to buy it." And So I got to get better about that, but maybe I don't. Maybe I just need to keep giving stuff away.
April, you're an inspiration, and I have benefited not only from your appearance on our program tonight, but our conversations leading up to that today. You are the example, the case study in the type of things that I am trying to identify and help give a place to share and to share it with others.
Thank
And
you.
you have been so generous, and thank you. These pictures are just they just melt, they just soothe your spirit. It's as if those pictures are alive. The
Thank you.
my quiet time, the times that God speaks to me in particular, no matter how busy, frustrated, whatever the situation is, when I hear those Canadian honkers way in the distance,
Yes.
a peace comes over me.
Well, you would love, so you would love that when we first bought this farm in December of 17, the very first day that we were riding through, I saw a Canadian goose with a broken wing.
Oh,
And I call it broken wing. I mean, it's still there. And it's evidently somebody shot it or something, and its
hmm,
wing grew
yeah.
back crooked. And so it's
Well,
alone. And every year, its friends come back and they like hang out for a while. And but now broken wing and broken wing, I have come to the conclusion must be a male because broken wing has
uh-huh,
never laid any eggs,
right,
and broken wing has visitors every year.
uh-huh.
So but broken wing every day he's with the sheep, and so
Wow.
that is a parable in itself. um it and I need to do a devotion, and I will at some point when the Lord just like breaks it on me how he wants it to be. But if you think about it, it's making the best of a situation, in loneliness. There are so many
Well,
people that are lonely.
and apparently
And
those sheep have taken it in, taken
yes,
Broken Wing in,
yes,
and there's so many wounded among us,
yes,
but
yes.
we tend to quarantine them.
Mhm.
We don't, their baggage. Um,
Right.
Gosh, what a
Well, and
story.
I will tell you, and I know that our time is gone, but I'll tell you really quickly. The week before the pandemic hit, okay, nobody knew the pandemic was coming, right? I don't have a crystal ball. Mm-mm. I did a devotion called Separated for a Season, and it was about a sheep who was sick, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. So I had to separate her from everybody so that she could get medication, so that I could give her extra feed, so that I could monitor her. But it was about a sheep in quarantine. And the very next week is when the pandemic hit, seriously. And so I just can't tell you how these animals correlate with life. And it's just very interesting. And I
Our
truly believe it's led of the Lord. So,
our
but thank you
resident
for having me.
expert, Ben Cooper, who knows all things biological and botanical, um,
Mhm.
has put in our chat room Canadian geese mate for life. So
Right. And I
so
and I have learned that, and I thought that, and interestingly, when the geese come back, they kind of seem to be paired. But what breaks my heart, and I keep telling my husband, I said one day Broken Wing's gonna fly. I said one day Broken Wing is going to fly because the broken wing is starting to grow out, like the
hmm,
angle of it
hmm,
changes.
hmm.
And so I keep thinking, and every year he tries to go with them, and I hope the Lord lets me see one day that he tries and he takes off with the rest of them. But it didn't work this year,
Okay.
even though they're still there. So maybe it will. I'll have
Hey,
to give you updates. I'll come back to give you an update on Broken Wing.
April, you have the beauty of the creation that God has put you in custody of has warmed our hearts, and your stories are an inspiration, and they make it come alive. I feel like I'm right there uh, instead of
Thank
hundreds of
you.
miles away. And thank you so
You'll have to
much.
come visit. You'll
We
have to
would
come visit. You and Mr. JD need to come visit.
I would love to do that. April, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
with us
you.
this evening.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you so
folks,
much.
there you see what it looks like high above the Eagle's Nest, the broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv, from which this broadcast originates. And I know we've gone kind of late, but we didn't have a 9:30 guest, and really enjoy. How can you not listen to April? I mean, how can you not just get drawn into that? Folks, I wanted to use some of the time, but I feel like we've used it already. But I do want to indicate that the momentum that is being built around the January 15th event is going to become more and more real, and it's going to involve you. Let me tell a little side story. When I met with Mark Winchester, the owner of the property where the barn is, he was sharing with me that he's booked for weddings for the remainder of this year, and that the fees that he charges is ample to pay to service the debt obligations that he's taken on, making the improvements. It's a beautiful facility. It's breathtaking. thehomesteadbarn.com is the website. I hope that we'll find a link. If Barbara, if you could find that link and put it in the chat room, it's breathtaking Southern charm, beauty. But so I looked at him and I said, Mark, I am sincerely happy for you, brother. I really am. I said, but that is not what we set out to do. And there's a longer story I won't tell tonight, but we did not set out to build a barn to hold weddings. We set out a barn to have events to glorify the kingdom of Christ and to exalt the name of God and to disciple Christians. And you could tell I got to him, so he kind of regained his composure, and he said, I'm booked for the rest of this year, but starting in January, he said, Mark, meaning me, he said, the place is yours. Tell me when you want it. I'll look on my calendar. If it's available, it's yours anytime. He said, if I get a call the next day wanting that same date that you've been given, I'll decline it. So, Mark, what are you going to do? Meaning me. So he put it on me. And that's when we began drawing a bead on January 15th to have, among other things, a PJNet family reunion. But we have already gotten some incredibly powerful and gifted men of God. Dave Kistler, Pastor Dave Kistler, will lead our speaking because he has to go back to North Carolina the same day. He'll be our first speaker. He is a firebrand for Jesus Christ, and he is one of the most courageous men for the kingdom that I know. He has no fear, and he is in contact with some very powerful figures in the political theater. We also will be having somebody who's appeared on our program. Kirby Calhoun will be joining us. Now, he is a former Green Beret. He lives in Pensacola, Florida. And I'll go on and on, but here's my point is in fashioning, when you contact these speakers, one of the things I ask you is, well, what exactly is it before I say I can or will, or under what conditions will I come? I need to know precisely what it is, because they don't want to associate themselves with something that's, you gotta be careful, right? So in putting that together, I'm sharing some of the progress with Mark and some of the things we're going to do. Well, I just got a message today from Mark that he's holding a meeting this Monday night to start a men's Bible study, men's ministry So apparently I've lit a fire under his butt as well. So I'm so happy about that. Please contact me to find out more details. I don't want to just sit here there, and things are coming into more focus. But folks, this is going to happen. It's just God is doing some incredible things. But one of the things that I'm being asked is, what do you want me to talk about? And I said, what I don't want to do is talk about the problem. Okay, we've got plenty of talking heads of great notoriety talking about the problem, and it leaves us, ordinary people, saying, "Well, that's bad. Somebody ought to do something about that." And they don't really offer any meaningful solutions that we can engage in. So I am focused, and Barbara and I have spent many hours discussing this and other projects, but basically I want our speakers at that event to point to pjnet.tv as where to plug in to get involved personally. To get involved personally in ministry. Go beyond sitting in a pew, okay, or writing a check, that kind of thing. Your own personal ministry. And to accomplish that, we need to have calls to action that anybody can do. I'm not talking about trying to change the world. I'm talking about trying to go say something, take something to your neighbor in love, mow the neighbor's grass in love. And we need to come up with simple calls to action that anybody can do. And once they do them, okay, when we identify that, we need to know, okay, tell me, how's God working in your life, so that we can then, as a team, go pile on. So we're going to be pushing to expand the core group, the faithful that are here night after night after night. But we're going to leverage that, and we want to applaud and pile on when we see acts of ministry taken on by personal initiative, that we will pile on and repost it and run it up a flagpole. So this will, one, encourage people, and we're going to cheerlead. But number two, it's going to expose that act of ministry way beyond. It's going to project it way beyond the neighbor that you tried to help fix their car, in the name of God, in the name of Christ, as an act of Christian love. Whatever the case may be, we'll project it outwards, and hopefully more people will see it, and hopefully people will say, well, gee, I could do that. And that needs to go from I could do that to I should do that to I must do that. There'll be more later. Okay. Before I leave, I want to challenge anybody within the sound of my voice and seeing this broadcast. If you see it today or 10 years from now, whenever you see it, it's still contemporaneously relevant. What is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And how long ago was that? My understanding of our orders is that we should never be satisfied with either answer.